If we really think about it, death is the true and ultimate purpose of our life. I have, over the last several years, formed such a knowing relationship with this true and best friend of humankind that his image holds nothing terrifying for me anymore. Instead, it holds much that is soothing and consoling.
In the summer of 1788, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was 32, and he was at the height of his creative powers. And yet his life had already been marked by tragedy. The death of his father Leopold the previous year was now followed by that of his 6-month-old baby daughter, Teresa, the third child that he and his wife Constanza had lost to premature death.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
I've always been captivated by the fact that Mozart's life, full of passions and struggles, fueled his music. Now, the textbooks would suggest that Mozart, like his contemporaries, had classical attitude. In other words, that he wrote music for particular occasions, music of great worth, written with great ease, but nonetheless not born out of a need to express himself emotionally or spiritually. You see, for me, Mozart's music, far from being a function of life, is a reflection of it.
Mozart was getting to grips with the fundamental truths of the human condition, life and death. With only 3 more years to live, he was to revolutionise instrumental and orchestral writing, crystallised in his last great trilogy of symphonies, which changed the future course of music.
In the weeks following baby Teresa's death, Mozart sat down and wrote this, his 40th symphony in G minor, a work of fury, anguish and despair. It's Mozart at his most distressed. This first movement is flighty, unsettling, weird, almost on the edge of chaos. And yet, of course, as ever, Mozart shows us he's in complete control. It's a monumental piece of work in which he's able to encapsulate really the whole human experience. The symphonic form that Mozart had inherited was nothing like this. Symphonies were modest, small-scale affairs, kind of warm-up numbers in a concert in between more interesting items. They could deal with 1 or 2 little episodes of life, a couple of primary colours. But with Mozart and the full spectrum, he could genuinely express the world. Even at this most turbulent time in Mozart's life, he's saying, look what I can do.
Well, that summer was probably the worst of our lives. I was finding it difficult to cope. Pregnant all the time, it seemed. We were both ill. And then there was the money problem.
Even for such a talent as Mozart was, there's no guaranteed income. Even so, quite where all the money went, I think that was a mystery to all of us.
I mean, I know we had to keep up appearances, but it just seemed to slip through our fingers.
They were broke, no question about it. Fortunately, I was in a position to be able to help. But the begging letters used to break my heart.
I have to admit that it's just not possible for me right now to pay back the money you lent me. Instead, I must beg you to be patient a little longer. My finances are in complete disarray, and I will have to borrow more money no matter what. I've asked him for 500 this time.
Are you sure that's not too much?
I know it's a lot, but if you can lend me even half that.
And that's how it was. Hand to mouth. Puchberg, God bless him, he did pay up. As he almost always did. But we never knew where Wolfgang's next job was coming from. Never knew whether he was in or out with the Viennese. Never knew whether he'd be repaid the money he himself lent to friends. The one thing I could be sure of was that he loved me.
Constanza played a central role in Mozart's life, both as lover and muse. Yet she's gone down in history, unfairly I think, as the woman who corrupted Mozart.
This all dates back to his father Leopold's attitude towards her. He was bitterly opposed to their marriage, believing Constanza's family to be unworthy of his son. Meanwhile, her mother, a poor musician's widow, did everything she could to keep the lovers apart. As long as Leopold refused to give his blessing to the union, she banned Wolfgang from seeing her daughter.
Frau Weber, please let me in!
Don't you know? If you can't do the decent thing and marry her, then you're not going to see her. Leave my house.
I
Go.
only want to talk to her.
My concern, young man, is to protect my daughter's honour.
Daughter's honour.
Constanza, come away from that window.
Oh, Frau Weber, please!
Well, they got their way in the end. Despite my father's warning, he knew how unsuitable she was for him. It was good for my brother to be happy, of course. But he just had no idea how much pain this caused my father. And for this, I found it hard to forgive him.
Et benedictionem suam in vobis imperat. O Deus omnipotens. In nomine Patris et Filis et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Neither Nan Earl, Mozart's sister, nor Leopold, his father, attended the wedding. But the following year, Mozart and Constanza made an attempt to heal the rift. Mozart wrote to his father, promising to visit Salzburg, and also inviting him and his sister to the premiere of his Great Mass in C minor, a work he'd written for Constanza.
My dearest father, about my moral commitment, yes, that's quite correct. I made the promise in my heart, and I hope to keep it. And as proof, I have the score of half a mass that is lying here waiting to be finished.
The promise was a pact Mozart had made with God. Before they married, Constanza had been very ill, and he vowed that if she recovered and married him, he'd write a mass in thanks. And the sublime composition he produced is one of the greatest religious works he ever wrote.
Mozart and Constanza had named their firstborn son Raymond Leopold in honor of the father who had rejected Constanza.
I found it hard to love my father and sister-in-law. God knows I wanted to. I longed to be accepted by his family, but there was no room in their hearts for me.
With reconciliation on Mozart's mind, and with some trepidation, the couple left the baby in the care of a foster parent and travelled to Salzburg.
My dearest sister, I hope you will not be offended by this step which I am taking solely from a sincere longing to communicate with a person who, though unknown to me, is yet very precious, as she bears the name of Mozart. I esteem you most highly as the sister of such an excellent brother, and I love you, and even venture to ask for your friendship. May I in exchange offer you mine? I trust you will accept it. And please tell your papa that I kiss his hand.
Perhaps Mozart hoped the Mass would act like a kind of peace offering for his family. He seemed to be saying, social status, money, these things may be important to you, but they don't matter to me. This is the woman I love. I love the fact that he wrote this solo part for her, rising phoenix-like out of that dark, pulsating opening.
It starts in C minor, outwardly a very tragic key, but somehow here it's not sad. It has tremendous life force.
It's as if he's saying, Constanza, in my world, is close to God.
Mozart never completed the Mass, perhaps symbolising the failure of the reconciliation between Constanza and his family. And while they were in Salzburg, they received tragic news. During their absence, baby Raymond Leopold had died.
Over the next 5 years, Wolfgang and Constanza saw his father only once more. The rift never healed. But Mozart found in his new wife as much love, comfort, and musical inspiration as he needed.
I don't think the Mozart family ever believed that my sister was their equal. Certainly not musically speaking. But the truth is that in her love of music, he had met his match. She could sing.
That's it.
She could play the piano. She loved Bach and Handel. And surely he would never have loved her as he did if she hadn't shared his passion.
Now let me.
Mozart had studied fugue as a child, but it was Constanza's passion for the form that reignited his. The fugue form is actually an incredibly rigorous type of musical composition, which is all about imitation. What happens is you get the first voice coming in with the theme, or subject as it's called. Then at that point, the second voice comes in with the answer, which is actually exactly the same as the subject, but either pitched a fifth higher or a fourth lower. Then, when that started, the first voice doesn't go silent. He continues, but now playing what's called the counter subject. Like a form of very high mathematics, but of course it's even more than that, because it's not enough just to obey the rules. You've got to make really convincing music at the same time. And it's this very layering of motifs that you get in fugue that was to add such excitement to his symphonic writing.
He was keen to impress on us that Constanza was behind this newly awakened love of fugue. Well, I seem to remember him delighting in this form when he was living with us. I wonder if she ever realised that despite my brother's brilliance, he really was a child. And remained a child, that was the problem. He always needed a father, a mother, someone to look after him. He had no idea about money, no idea how to manage his life and keep the chaos at bay. If only he could have found someone to look after him as I had done.
By now, Mozart had fully outgrown his family. Nevertheless, his father had been his mentor and confidant for the best part of his life, so when Leopold died suddenly in May 1787, leaving most of his estate to Mozart's sister, Wolfgang was filled with grief and unresolved rage. And what major work did he write next? A glorious confection, a fantastically fertile, daring romp of a piece. Eine kleine Nachtmusik.
I can produce better music out of my own arse.
he saying with it? Why is he writing such sprightly, positive music when such a significant event in his life has just occurred? Leopold, for so long the bedrock of his life, has gone. You'd have thought it would have elicited from him some really deep, and dark and penetrating work. The reality is that when you get below the surface, this sheeny veneer, there is a dark brilliance to it. Here you have something which is outwardly bright and positive. It's in the key of C major after all, a lovely, wide, open key, perhaps echoing some sense of liberation from his father. And yet, not far below the surface, there's a much greater sense of tenderness, of poignancy. It's elegant, yes, but boy, is it sad. Perhaps the saddest music ever written by anyone in a major key. When his father dies, the music it brings out of him is full of charm and warmth. It's almost as if he's trying to say, my dad's died, but I'm okay. Of course, you look a little bit deeper in the music and you realise he's not okay at all.
Mozart had every reason to feel despondent. By 1787, his income was down to a third of what it had been during his most prosperous years in Vienna. A recession had drastically curtailed the capital's musical life.
For years, Mozart had tried to obtain a permanent position at the court of the Emperor Joseph II. His efforts had been in vain until December 1787.
When the composer Gluck, who'd occupied the post for nearly 3 decades, suddenly died, Mozart was at last appointed court composer.
So, have you found out how much the Emperor's willing to pay you?
It's a decent salary.
Well, come on, how much?
800.
And how much was Gluck paid?
2,000.
How can they say you're worth less? How dare they?
Assured me I were not to be forgotten in the future.
The future? What good can the future do us? We need money now.
Mozart told me this new job of his is driving him crazy. He hasn't been commissioned to do anything decent yet. He gets to do a lot of this sort of thing. I mean, nothing wrong with that, of course. But And so the Black Thought, as he called them, continued. Yet somehow he'd managed to shake it off, put a brave face on it.
You'd go round to see him, and he'd be prattling on about some new piece he'd written, some new jacket he wanted to buy, some famous billiards player just arrived in town. And all the while creating this sublime music.
This symphony, his 39th, was also written during that terrible but insanely creative summer of 1788. It's got a kind of savage brutality unlike anything we've ever seen in Mozart before. The very opening adagio has got this really almost ugly, pugnacious quality to it, with a huge motor driving it. And these downward and upward turning scales in the violins. Stark timpani writing, the drum writing. It's just driving us to the next jarring forte.
No one can doubt his genius, but he was always in ferment. His ideas were too frequently in a state of flux.
Just look at the symphonies. For all their pomp and fire and brilliance, they lack that sense of unity, that clarity and directness of presentation.
Which we rightly admire in the works of, for example, Mr. Haydn.
Noble simplicity, what's wrong with that?
Yes, Herr Mozart has a decided leaning towards the difficult and unusual.
Perhaps one might say his music was too highly seasoned.
And whose palate can endure that for long?
Well, the critics missed the point. The opening may be difficult and unusual, but here's this charming allegro section which follows it, which wouldn't have half the potency it does had it not been preceded by that jarring opening material. Such a key for Mozart, this, that you put two characters side by side, and it's all about the particular oil they give off when they're applied to each other. There's something I love so much about Mozart. He's so human. He totally understood that you can't have joy without pain. Terror without consolation, love without grief. And here in the 39th Symphony, he shows it.
In defiance of critical opinion, Mozart continued to find new ways to innovate. In the second half of the 1780s, his writing for small groups of peers and friends was reaching its height. The composer Joseph Haydn was one of really only a very small handful of musicians who recognised Mozart's genius. And Haydn was probably just about the only contemporary composer Mozart felt he could truly admire.
To my dear friend Haydn, a father, having decided to send his children out into the wide world, felt that he should entrust them to the protection and guidance of a famous man who, by good fortune, was also his best friend. Well, here they are, distinguished man and dearest friend, my 6 children. May it please you to welcome them kindly, and to be for them a father, guide, and friend.
A true child of the Enlightenment, Mozart believed that we're all born equal. And in his quartets, as well as his late symphonies, there's a sense that every instrument has its own clear voice, in music of high sophistication. At a time when commissions were hard to come by, when Mozart was largely uninspired by the kind of music he was paid to write, these were works for his peers, for people he loved and respected, and who returned the compliment.
We never had enough money that summer. Despite the fact that my husband was working all the time. If not composing for himself, then teaching others. Usually extremely pretty, rich, young, aristocratic ladies.
And once again?
Who doubtless didn't have to worry where the rent money was coming from. Just whether they could get their arpeggios right. Someone said, after he died, that he only ever gave lessons to women he was in love with.
Remember to breathe.
They hated me that much to want to continue wounding me even after he'd gone.
Mozart's financial affairs were reaching crisis point. Throughout his life, when things got difficult, his instinct had always been to take to the road. Now he set off on a whistle-stop tour, leaving behind Constanza and their only child, Carl Thomas.
Look after your mother for me. Yes? I'll bring back lots of money.
His plan was to play at the great courts of Central Europe, desperately hoping for the commissions he so badly needed to keep afloat.
He was a very proud man. He wasn't just going to sit around and wait for the work to come in. And if the Viennese couldn't appreciate him, he just felt he had to find his patronage elsewhere. I don't think he really enjoyed it. But if we were to survive in Vienna, he had no choice.
My darling wife, I beg you not to be sad. Take good care of your health, and be careful when you go out into those spring breezes.
Remember that every night before going to bed, I talk to your portrait for a good half hour. I kiss you and squeeze you 10,9,050,000 times. I am forever yours.
The trip was not a financial success. There was much applause for Mozart's work, but little in the way of profit.
The fact that Mozart didn't get the recognition he deserved is nothing short of a scandal. These incomparable works. Nations should have been vying to possess such a jewel. Without reward, the story of great genius is a sad one and offers little encouragement for further effort. And for this reason, so many hopeful spirits suffer defeat. It made me angry to think that this unique Mozart had not yet found an appointment worthy of his talents. Forgive me, I loved the man too much.
After 2 months, Mozart returned home with only a fraction of the hoped-for commissions in his pocket.
I think it was hard for my poor sister. When he was away, he always declared his undying love for her. Yet she felt that he was having a fine old time away from the family. And then he would chide her for being jealous.
We really should get some of your winter coats altered. Do you want to take them or shall I? Wolfgang?
What? Oh, sorry. Yes,
And Puchberg wants to know if he can come to some of your rehearsals. Wolfgang, you're really not listening to me at all, are you?
Oh, he loved his family. There's no doubt about that. But with music, when he was composing, or playing, or just thinking about it, it was almost as if he had withdrawn into some private world.
This was a black period for the family. With severe leg pains, the heavily pregnant Constanza was sent for treatment at a nearby spa.
I'd been living in such misery that I was not only unable to go out, but couldn't even write, out of sheer distress. There is some concern that Constanza's bone might become infected. She is astonishingly resigned to her fate.
He often said to me that he was concerned about Constanza. And it's true, she suffered appallingly with her health. He used to send her off to this expensive spa and couldn't afford the bills. But he was the one that worried me, always catching a chill of some sort. Always too busy to properly recover. He really wasn't as strong as he looked.
Fate is against me, but only in Vienna. I cannot earn any money even when I want to. If it's possible for you, dearest friend, pay us a visit. And, if you can, help me.
Our little baby was taken from us within an hour of her birth. At least I was able to hold our beloved Anna Maria in my arms before they took her away.
As so often in Mozart's life, music became the healing response to sadness. A month after his baby's death, Mozart poured his desolation into writing works for wind instruments and premiered his clarinet quintet. a work written for one of his closest friends, the virtuoso clarinetist Anton Stadler.
Up until now, the clarinet hadn't had a melodic role in chamber music. It certainly didn't have the same status as other wind instruments like oboes, horns, or flutes. What fascinated him was that this was a little-used, fledgling instrument invented less than 100 years earlier, but which was developing incredibly fast and presenting a whole new world of possibility.
I had told his good father 5 years earlier that his beloved son was simply the greatest composer I had known, and my words were proved true. I so hoped that he would accompany me to London, where an impresario had hired me, requesting also that Mozart come too.
Please try and write whenever you can.
Well, of course I will.
Let me know how those English are treating you.
Perhaps you will follow me to London soon.
I fear this is the last time that we'll see each other. Farewell.
I told him enough of these dark thoughts, but he never reached London. And I never did see him again.
By this time, Mozart was suffering an anguishing decline in popularity. The death of Emperor Joseph II in 1790 deprived him of one of his most reliable patrons, making his prospects shakier still. But when Mozart, unlike most of his musical colleagues, wasn't invited to the new sovereign's coronation in Frankfurt, he determined to make his own way there.
Mozart pawned the family's silver and Constanza's jewellery to pay for the trip. Once again, hoping it would result in new commissions and more money.
He was happy to be away again, performing his music, meeting his friends. At the same time, there was a new note of bitterness in his letters that worried me.
If people could see into my heart, I should almost feel ashamed. To me, everything is cold, cold as ice. Perhaps if you were here with me, I might take more pleasure in the kindness of those I meet here. But as it is, everything seems so empty.
To the outside world, Mozart's fortunes seemed to be improving.
More wine, yes, more wine.
He was commissioned to write the opera La Clemenza di Tito, and the Magic Flute would soon be premiered to great acclaim. His work was finding new audiences across Europe, and as a result, his financial worries were easing. But privately he knew that his health, weak since he was a child, was failing him. He was apart from Constanza once again. She was pregnant and also ill. And the old struggle between his art and family life still haunted him.
Actually, I think I'm going to put 3.
You cannot imagine how I have been aching for you all this long while. It's a kind of emptiness which hurts me dreadfully. A kind of longing which is never satisfied. Love me as I love you. Forever, your Mozart.
Constanza recovered, and in summer 1791 gave birth to a healthy child, their second son, Franz.
Wolfgang told me we were going to have a wonderful life. He said we'd never get into such dreadful straits again. For the first time in months, our future was not something which filled us both with dread. And yet something happened that July which unsettled us both. A messenger arrived at our house, claiming to have come on behalf of a patron who wished to remain anonymous. This patron wanted my husband to write a funeral mass to commemorate his young wife who had just died. Wolfgang accepted the commission. The stranger said he would return with a further payment in a few weeks' time. He wrote day and night. The kidney pains that had so often afflicted him had returned. And as usual, he believed the work could cure him.
Constanza, I don't think I'm going to last much longer.
Don't say that. You need to slow down. You haven't stopped. Let's put the manuscript away until you're feeling better.
No.
Well, surely the patron can wait.
No, this is going to be a great work. I know it. And both my friends and enemies will be studying it long after I'm dead.
The patron can wait, Wolfgang!
Mozart had only a few more weeks to live. As well as a kidney infection, he'd now contracted rheumatic fever. He never finished the Requiem. Yet, for me, Mozart's genius had found its most complete expression 3 years earlier. In purely instrumental terms, Mozart made his final statement in his last symphony.
His Jupiter in blazing C major. It was written during that stunning surge of creativity in 1788, the year his baby daughter died. This last movement is a monumental work, and it begins with what sounds for all the world like a fugue subject. But as it continues, you realise that this layering of motifs, this fugal style, is just one of many different concepts that Mozart has completely mastered and moved beyond. He's working at so much deeper a level of complexity in terms of instrumental colour and orchestral texture. And even though this symphony is his last, it's not an end point. For Mozart, there are no dead ends. It's as if he's bursting the door wide open on a whole new world of possibility. Mozart's no longer writing in the way that his predecessors had done, out of a sense of practical obligation and necessity, but rather out of a deep sense of spiritual need. For that reason, I believe Mozart is the first great romantic composer. Much more than just a fulcrum between the 18th and 19th centuries, I think these last three symphonies take us beyond what even Beethoven achieved. The Jupiter could be seen as the culmination of everything he ever wrote.
My dear brother-in-law was now so ill, and my sister was beside herself. I went into the city every day to visit him. And that Saturday afternoon, he told me he was feeling much better and would be coming to visit our mother on her birthday. The following day, I decided to stay at home. After all, he seemed on the mend. It was dark and cold that December afternoon. Such a strange feeling came over me. I couldn't get Wolfgang out of my head. And I knew I must leave immediately.
Oh, thank God you've come.
Sophie. So glad you're here. Tonight, you must stay and see me die.
You're going to be all right. I promise you.
But you must stay. If you don't, we'll look after my dearest Constanza when I'm gone. I already have the taste of death on my tongue.
One of the last things he told us that night was how bitterly he regretted leaving us, his wife and children, without being properly provided for. Why now? He asked me. Why do I have to go now? When I'm no longer a slave to fashion, no longer chained by speculators, when I can compose freely and independently whatever my heart dictates. Yes, indeed. Why now?
Mozart died in the early hours of Monday the 5th of December 1791. He was 35, and the widespread acclaim that he taught throughout his life only came after his death. His works were more widely published, performed, and loved than he'd ever dreamt of during his lifetime.
As for Constanza, she was overcome with grief. It was many years before she could bring herself to visit his burial place.
In the years that followed Mozart's death, it was Constanza who ensured that her husband's name lived on, publishing his scores and organising a series of benefit concerts throughout Central Europe. For me, his unerring instinct for what it is to be human, coupled with his extreme virtuosity as a creative artist, these are the reasons why Mozart is music.